name is Stephen Gottlieb, and I made up the trigonometry video. At this point, I would just love for you to sit back and view a sample demonstration. That way you get to see a little bit of my teaching style. Let me show you how to graph a sine curve. Suppose you were asked to graph y is equal to -2 times the sine of the angle x minus pi. First thing you should do is draw your sine graph. This will be the x-axis. I don't know where the y-axis goes yet. Since it's a -2 sine graph, that is, since it's negative, I draw my sine graph upside down. Okay, first thing you do is draw one period of the sine graph. And then you do a couple of things. You find out where the graph starts. And it always starts when the angle, x minus pi, is equal to 0. If you subtract two things and you get 0, that's because these two quantities are the same. X is pi. Pi take away pi is 0. And if you insist on adding pi to both sides, fine. 0 plus pi is pi. If you have x and you take away pi and then you add the pi back, you just get x. We start at pi. Okay, wonderful. That's pi. Now, where do we finish? We always finish a sine or a cosine graph when the angle is 2 pi. And just for the record, for a sine or a cosine graph, we start where the angle is 0. The only difference if this were sine, instead of drawing a sine, cosine I meant to say, instead of drawing a sine graph or a negative sine graph, I would draw a cosine graph or a negative cosine graph, depending upon what sine of the angle is being multiplied by. If it's being multiplied by a negative angle, I draw it upside down. Okay. Now, you should maybe not even see pi's. This is 1 pi. You have x and you take away 1 and you have 2. It's 3. 3 pi. If you have 3 pi's and you take away 1 pi, you'll have 2 pi's left. You have 3 pi's and you take away a pi, you'll have 2 pi's. You want to add pi to both sides, also known as 1 pi, you'll get x is equal to 3 pi. That is the finish. It finishes at 3 pi. X equals 3 pi. I need this space over here for the graph. Okay. Now, let's find some other points. We should find the quarter point, the half point, the 3/4 point. Well, between 1 pi, this is understood to be 1 pi and 3 pi, and between 1 and 3 is 2. So you have 2 pi. What's this? In between 1 pi and 2 pi. Well, just know it's going to be some pi. What's in between 1 and 2? 1.5, or 3/2. 1 pi, 3/2 is 1.5. So 1 pi, 1.5 pi, 2 pi's, 2.5 pi's, 3 pi's. Quick check is, what's in between 2 and 3? 2.5. If you prefer, you can add them up. You'll get 5 or 5 pi. And when you divide by 2, you'll get what's in the middle. That's the number right there. Now, one last thing. Where is the x-axis? Well, we know where the x-axis is. I drew it. Where is the y-axis? Well, when you go from 1 pi to 2 pi, you went 1 pi. Well, if you're at 1 pi and you go over 1 pi, you'll be at 0. And wherever x is 0. That's where you put the y-axis. Now, nobody's going to take a ruler out on you. But you have to be fair. If this distance is 1 pi, you shouldn't put the y-axis right here. Because this distance and that distance are not the same. Perfect. It looks like that is the distance. So right about here, you should put your y-axis. And since this is the absolute value of this is 2, the highest value, go to the highest point, the highest value is 2, and the lowest value is -2, and there's your graph. And one last thing. An easier way to know that 1½ is 3/2. I mean, there's many ways. You should just know that. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 3/2. But again, if you add these up, 1 pi plus 2 pi's, then divide it by 2, you get 3 pi/2, and you get the middle. Between 1 pi and 2 pi is that number, so right in the middle, but here and here, I put 3 pi/2. It's always right up above this low point. It's right below this high point. There's your perfect graph. Sine graph and cosine graph starts when the angle, whatever it is, equals 0, and it finishes where the angle is. I don't care what it is, but it's going to equal 2 pi. Solve for the x's and you'll be done. We start at pi, we finish at 3 pi, it's a -2. Boom. But I prefer to draw it first. It works well. Okay, this completes the sample demonstration. Hope you learned a little bit of graphing sines and even cosine graphs. Thank you for watching my video to the end, and most of all, I wish you great success in your trigonometry class. Thank you.